As long as humans have been exploring space, they have been leaving a bit of a mess there. Orbiting the Earth are thousands of dead satellites that no longer work, and small tiny chunks of debris that come from rockets that have been launched over the years.
Aaron Lopez reports on the growing problem of human-made debris in space. Debris, that space junk is space junk. When we say space junk or space debris,
pieces of debris,
could really eventually harm.
These are defunct satellites.
Does the space debris impact that?
Rocket bodies, parts of spacecraft, 50 years, flecks of paint. Density of space debris, continued collisions would actually cause...
Private space companies now are launching satellites.
Hi, if you're new here, my name is Ariosef. I started my YouTube channel just recently to share some of the information I actually come along as I'm studying, and I hope that it will be beneficial to you. So, without wasting much of the time, we are going to tackle this intriguing topic of space junk or orbital debris. We are going to find out, is orbital debris dangerous to humans, or how does it come about? What is orbital debris? So without wasting much of the time, let's get into it. Okay, cool. So how much space junk is there in the sky?
Sir Holzinger, thank you so much for joining. When we say space junk or space debris, what exactly are we talking about, and how much is in Earth's orbit?
Well, the European Space Agency publishes detailed figures on how much space junk is there in space. In space. So it says that there are 6,300 successful rocket launches since 1957, and it has delivered 14,450 satellites in the Earth's orbit. Over the same period, there has been 630 explosions in the sky and other unplanned events, thus leading to multiplying or splitting up of objects into more tiny small objects. Now, there are currently 32,750 objects tracked and catalogued by the Combined Force Space Component Command, which is part of the Combined Space Operations Center at Vandenberg in USA, California. These objects are observed and tracked by monitoring their reflections from the sun, and the data is fed into a complex system which is used to determine the object's size and distance from the Earth. Well, this is highly advanced, sophisticated, complex scientific practice, but the team at the Space Force Base can be able to pick up objects that are only 50 centimeters long and are traveling at a speed of 3 kilometers per second and are at a distance of 35,786 kilometers away in a geostationary orbit. Based on the statistical model produced by the European Space Agency from the Debris Office, it is estimated that about 36,500 objects are larger than 10 centimeters, and 1 million objects are between 1 centimeter to 10 centimeters, and an extraordinary 130 million are between 1 millimeter and 1 centimeter. And just remember, these objects are always moving at a very high speed, over 18,000 miles per hour. That is approximately 7 times the speed of a bullet. Research has it clear that in case these small tiny objects, the tiniest objects, in case they collide, they may cause serious damage in the lower Earth's orbit and may put space-based operations, services and activities at a safety risk. Okay, cool. How does this orbital debris come into the Earth's orbit? Well, one obvious answer can be these satellites that have been being used, when their mission is done, they are discarded and left in the Earth's orbiting, just orbiting about the Earth. So that is one answer where orbital debris comes from. But on the other hand, when also rockets are setting off and they reach the sky, they start disintegrating, and those parts actually that are from rockets or spacecrafts, they are set into the Earth's orbit and start also orbiting around. One other way how orbital debris accumulates in the lower Earth orbit is...
But sometimes they run into each other. And in 2009, these two old things crashed into each other, and they turned 2 satellites into 2,000 pieces of debris, some of which are still up there right now. So collisions are really bad.
Through collisions, they hardly happen, but the first ever recorded accidental in-orbit collision happened on 10th of February 2009 at 1600 hours and 56 minutes UTC time at a height of 776 kilometers high above the region of Siberia in Russia. Two satellites, one was an American privately owned communication satellite, Iridium 33, and a Russian military satellite called Cosmos 2251 collided at 11 kilometers per second. This generated over 2,300 tiny objects, whereas most of these objects re-entered. Re-entering is a term used to refer to objects entering back into the atmosphere, thus burning up before they reach the Earth. Most of these objects entered the atmosphere and burned up, but some other objects remained into the Earth's orbit and started orbiting. Well, one of the other ways how space junk accumulates is
Some of the bigger governments have said, well, what if we want to shoot an enemy satellite down, like we shoot down their drones or we shoot down their airplanes? And you can understand that. We call those anti-satellite weapons. And the Soviet Union started that in the 70s, and then the Americans in the 80s and 2000s, and then the Chinese launched one, and the Indians launched one, and the Russians launched one. And the trouble is, an anti-satellite weapon turns one satellite into thousands of pieces.
some governments, including USA, China, and India, deliberately blow up their satellites after their missions are done, and therefore this multiplies the number of objects in space or in the lower Earth orbit, thus increasing the volume of space junk in the lower Earth orbit. Well, that leaves us with the question, so is space junk dangerous or just neutral?
So how big a threat is it, really, now that we know and can start to count all the pieces up there? So eventually, a piece of debris will kill everybody on the space station. Eventually.
Well, the matter of fact is space junk is actually dangerous, but more so dangerous to the space-based services, operations, and activities that are held up in the sky. But there has been instances where space junk has actually fallen from the sky and fell down on the Earth. Recently, a small 700-gram piece, 10 centimeters long, fell on a man's home in Florida in the US, and sometime after that, NASA admitted that it was actually hardware from spacecraft that actually was expected to burn up before reaching the ground. But I don't know what really happened, so it happened to fall on someone's home. Well, that is one of the instances where space junk has been able to reach the Earth. Now, it is believed that just a flick of paint from spacecraft can actually cause a serious damage in the Earth's orbit. So, well, it leaves you with research. I'm also going to research more about it, but generally, space junk is actually dangerous, but more so to space-based operations. This brings us to another question. Can space junk be cleaned out of the Earth's orbit? Well, it's kind of tricky because treaties have been signed regarding this cause and they haven't really been efficiently followed. But the United Nations asked all companies to remove all dead satellites within a period of 25 years after their mission is done. And the matter of fact is, it has been tricky to enforce because space doesn't belong to anyone, neither to any country or government, and so there are no international space laws for cleaning up this because it is expensive, that is one, and requires sophisticated and complex scientific practices to clean up all this space junk. Now, measures have been devised by, I think, creating a hoop or something like a net to fish the satellites, the bigger satellites that are actually no longer active. But this measure actually works for only and bigger satellites. They were supposed to net them and then drag them into the atmosphere, then leave them to burn up before they reach the Earth. But this method works for bigger satellites. How about small flicks of paint? How about small tiny chunks of objects? Therefore, this leaves us with the question whether space junk can be cleaned or not. Well, If you have watched up to this point of the video, you must be this guy who is interested in fascinating physics and tech ideas. So I urge you to subscribe. Please feel free to share the video, recommend it to someone, like and comment on the video. It helps us tell YouTube that the video is actually nice, so it can be recommended to everyone. And therefore, I really thank you for watching. If you didn't watch the last video, I made a video about how electric trains work. I think it's going to be right here. Oh yeah. Then there's also another video about the 6G network. Please feel free to check it out. And thank you very much. Please feel free to comment any ideas you'd like me to talk about in the physics world, the tech world, everywhere. I'll be ready to review your comments and talk about them later on in the upcoming videos. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Peace.